All right, welcome back to the Canadian Gun Vault. Behind the vault door, I'm Mark Morelli. I'll be your host for this evening, and I want to talk about something that definitely caught my attention today. I was giving a friend a hand with picking up a collection that was being temporarily housed by one of our local police services, and he was picking up the guns. He had inherited these items, but they were temporarily being stored until such time that they could be picked up from the police service. And while I was there, going through the guns, I had an opportunity to see some of the other items that were contained in the vault where firearms are stored. And obviously, I demonstrated some kind of knowledge of firearms because the gentleman who was there in charge of that branch of the property division for that service, mentioned me. You might like what we have over here, and just pointed over to a large series of shelves containing a number of items that I found incredibly exciting to look at and just handle briefly, very carefully, I might add. But there I was in the presence of probably one of the most fantastic World War I, World War II, and Cold War machine gun collections that I had ever seen. And thankfully, instead of these things being immediately disposed of and destroyed by shredding them and melting them down, I understand that the family was trying to determine who was going to be taking over possession of these things. And again, they're being housed temporarily by the police. And looking at these items, it became very clear to me that the former owner was definitely a connoisseur and the kind of man that really appreciated, fantastic firearm history, connected to these types of items. And just to be around them, was incredible. To know that, Maxim machine guns, and to know that even the firearms division of this local police service really didn't have, I think, a true appreciation for their monetary value, even. To know that, these items would be worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and contained in this collection was, things that I had never seen outside of books before. I mean, even me, who spends a lot of time around firearms, I was just in awe at some of the things that were present there. And it's nice to know that people are starting to understand the intrinsic value and the monetary value and the historical value of these types of guns, and to know that that a family would be definitely wanting to take over their possession, but clearly hearing that researching these items and knowing exactly what they were was kind of left up to the police, and to see that the knowledge base may not be as clear as people might think. A lot of people over the years have kind of come to me and assumed that police know quite a bit about firearms, and the truth is that a lot of police officers don't. Outside of their service pistol and perhaps their patrol shotgun or carbine. The police understanding of firearms and definitely the history of firearms is pretty limited. And then that's not to say that they're not really intelligent people or that they're, not interested. It's just, there's a wealth of things that police officers have to, know and do throughout the course of their duties as they perform them during the day. But knowing the ins and outs of firearms and their function and exactly what's what is definitely not going to always fall into that category of knowledge. So you've got these incredible pieces, and if the family had no interest, and I've seen this years my years as a police officer, saw families turn in firearms for destruction. And knowing full well that they would be destroyed, always left a real, raw spot on me. Seeing, Thompsons, like seeing Tommy guns melted down, or Civil War muskets, or MG42s, from World War II, like real historical pieces being destroyed. It's really great to see kind of a revived interest in firearms in general. But now to know that, families, families that aren't around, perhaps, that grandfather or that uncle that loved his guns. It's really fantastic to see people starting to take an interest in these sort of things. I encourage everyone, who has a family member who owns firearms, to get out there and do a little shooting with them, or ask to see, what it is that they have, and, to express an interest in those types of things, because you never know. They may just get left to you. They may be worth quite a bit of money, as is the case in this particular instance. And to show an interest in the things that they find enjoyable about them. It's important that knowledge gets passed on. That those types of activities that they engage in get appreciated, just like the people that are involved in them. So, to see the firearms community growing and to see the interest level increasing is really, something that I find encouraging. But at the same time, knowing that a lot of these things get destroyed is very sad. And in my 20 years of service, it was very unsettling, to see these things getting disposed of when they could have gone someplace else. And I mean, I it was pretty good. There were moments when things were clearly identified as items that belonged, either in a museum, when they were standouts, people would take it upon themselves maybe to do a little more research and to perhaps, make the extra effort to get them into museums. But definitely before you contact your local police service and ask for them to, pick up firearms, for destruction when people pass, to make the effort to, perhaps get a gun license, and be able to take over possession of them immediately is really helpful. I'm sure that the local police services could use the additional shelf space. Storage of items always comes with it, the responsibility of caring for these things. And I can tell you that, to have things kind of stored on shelves where there's a limited amount of space certainly increases the chances of, items being placed one on top of the other, and the potential for items getting scratched or scuffed. And I mean, when the value of these items is completely dependent on the condition, that can have an impact, ultimately on the investment. And certainly for the people that cared enough about them when they were alive, it's kind of sad to see, things perhaps running the risk of being damaged. So, if you decide to get your gun license and, familiarize yourself with guns and spend a little time with that family member who's a little bit older, you might be ensuring that their wishes get fulfilled, that these items get passed on, that they're taken care of properly. So again, I would encourage people to, get their gun licenses and make sure that they spend a little time with, Grandpa, if he likes his guns, and maybe, head out with him and do a little bit of shooting would be, more than beneficial, I think, for everybody involved. And at the same time, before you contact the police, to have things, melted down and destroyed, that you might want to, reach out to the necessary places that could take over possession of them and not have them destroyed. Because pretty much when they end up in police hands, if there's nobody to take over care of them that's immediately on hand, I mean, they can only hold on to them for so long. And, after that time period has elapsed and nobody has decided to claim them, that's exactly where they're going. They're going into the shredder. They're going to be melted down, and they're lost forever. And I mean, with items like, Russian PPSH 41s or Browning bars, or, like those Maxim machine guns or MG 42s or 34s. And I mean, all these great, historically significant pieces. And I mean, that for a lot of people out there that are listening and aren't too familiar with guns, I mean, these are guns that would have seen action in some of the greatest battles in World War II history. And to see them destroyed is really a tragedy, and or to not see them cared for properly the way their former owners would have hoped for is very sad. So again, I'd like to just throw that little piece of advice out there. Spend a little time with the family members that love these guns, and ask the questions. Where are they going when you pass away? When it comes to that time, where are they going to be? I'd rather see these guns get passed on to qualified owners that have been properly trained and certified by the government than, to run the risk of being, lost. So for those of you out there that, have family members that are interested in firearms, take an interest. Spend a little time with them. It's a worthwhile investment. Anyway, that's about all the time we have tonight for the Canadian Gun Vaults Behind the Vault Door. We hope you've enjoyed this evening's broadcast and have yourself a great night.